by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.
And welcome into Inside Arkansas Live here on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I'm your host, John Neighbors, alongside Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis, and appreciate each and every one of you for making us a part of your afternoon this afternoon. We got a fun-filled show for you on Thursday. As we know, we get closer and closer to game day against the Auburn Tigers. We'll talk a little bit about that, get into our SARACEN prop plays, and also talk about something that was really interesting from Trent Dilfer, the UAB coach, as he went on with Mac and Cube. Some really good stuff there. But, fellas, how we feeling on a Thursday now that we know a little bit more? Oh, the injury report. Can't forget that. Historic day for the Razorbacks. So a few things to talk about today. But how we feeling on a Thursday, guys?
Good, man. Excited. Let's talk some ball.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely in need of some ball talk is what we're in need of. This fan base wants to talk about anything but this Arkansas Auburn game, and we will humor them a little bit. But guys, we gotta stay on the task at hand. You know, I'm trying to coach the fan base up. Like, hey, we can't solve all the problems in 1 week, but you know what we can do? We can beat Auburn. That's what we can do.
I want to let the record show that there were people in this chat that said yesterday that I need to bring more positivity, better vibes today. I'm there. Football, baby. We're here. SEC play. Grown man ball, as linebackers say. Let's go.
All right. So what has gotten you guys so fixated on feeling good about this game in particular? Or is it something just about the game in general that you're looking forward to?
I just personally, I'm tired of talking about this NIL crap. And so I'm excited about the start of SEC play. And, you know, I think it gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. Everything's been so big picture about this football program with, coming into the year with the coach on the hot seat and, oh man, all these weird reminders of, what happened last season and God, they don't play well at home. And all that is true and it's all frustrating, but it's still an SEC football game, you know, and it's one that Arkansas has a very real chance of going in and not only competing, but winning. And so I'm trying to channel my positive vibes towards that to help balance out and offset a little bit of the other things that are frustrating, which includes this constant weirdness of NIL and, you know, everything else is going on outside of the football game itself.
Yeah, Curtis, you said big picture there, and I feel like that's like everyone wants to have the big picture conversations, but really, as we'll get into later, I'm sure, like a lot of times it's made up of how you do in the small picture. And John knows this as well as anyone that you win on Saturday and all of a sudden everyone loves the program again. Everyone's buzzing. Everyone's happy. These conversations are a lot easier to have. And you know, there's way more to get into in terms of the future of Arkansas sports programs and all that. I'm not saying it all rides on this Auburn game, but I feel like when you have a stinker of a performance at home, it just makes this NIL conversation that much more infuriating. And so I think that's part of why, you know, we have that mindset of like, hey, let's scale it back here a little bit. Let's try and win a football game, and then let's meet on Monday and let's figure it out then. We can reassess the big picture foundation of the program.
All right. Well, in that case, I guess all has been said about the NIL, so we can just move on, I guess. So
there you go. It's fixed up.
Great deal. So anyways, yeah, so Arkansas and Auburn happening this week, and the line, of course, has been kind of moving a little bit back and forth, seeing I think it was at 3.5 yesterday, according to BetSaracen, and now it's at a 4-point favorite for Auburn right now. So moving a little bit in that direction, as well as, you know, people starting to kind of break it down and seeing about who's playing and who's not playing, what the quarterback situation is going to look like for Auburn, and especially since they've just recently approached it to where they're going to be going with in Hank Brown, which, you know, that's going to be kind of the fascinating thing for them, is because you know, it's one thing to be able to have a good quarterback who had a good performance last week, but now it's not just SEC play for Arkansas, it's SEC play for Auburn too. And I'll be honest, I don't think that, you know, whether it's Peyton Thorne or Hank Brown or whoever's the quarterback, I think Arkansas is going to be the best team that Auburn has faced so far this year, even though it's at home. But it's going to be interesting to see how a quarterback at home like Hank Brown ends up handling the pressure of, hey, they need this win just like Arkansas needs this win. The fan bases in both sides are kind of teetering right now. And so that's going to be the fascinating thing for me, is to see how this quarterback situation plays out and how it's handled.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. It's kind of crazy. There are some parallels, like you kind of nailed it there. Like there's some frustration on both sides. Auburn probably wishes they were further along here under Hugh Freeze, and when you're 2 games into the season, you're making a quarterback change to a 3-star redshirt freshman. That's a red flag. And but he was good against New Mexico. I don't know what you can take away from that. Everybody was good against UAPB for Arkansas, and then they've had some struggles since then. So the book is still kind of out on him, but I think the biggest part about it is you got to get out of this game on Saturday, making it clear, leaving no doubt that you had the best quarterback on the field. And that means Taylor Green's got to play better. He's got to be more accurate. His guys have to help him out, catch the football. All that stuff matters. But then also you got to make life hard on Hank Brown. If he's able to just sit there in a clean pocket and play 7-on-7, he's going to pick you apart. You've got a banged up secondary. Any quarterback would be able to do that. So the pass rush is going to be really important. Travis Williams' scheme, the way he disguises things, where he brings blitzes from, all that stuff's going to be really important. You have to make that dude as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, we really don't know a ton about this Hank Brown kid. I mean, we saw him play last week, and again, I don't know what all you can take from that. But I think that's what's so fascinating about this matchup is this is both teams' first SEC game. Preseason, we thought this would be our Auburn's first real test. Of course, they failed their week 2 test, just like Arkansas failed their week 2 test, but we kind of knew that was a real test, at least coming in. But there's still so much to learn about both sides of the equation here. Like, we don't really know what Arkansas's offensive line is going to look like against an SEC front. We don't know what Arkansas's secondary is going to look like against SEC wide receivers. We don't know what Hank Brown is going to look like against an SEC defense. And so I feel like this is a big week where we're going to find out a lot about both of these teams and both of these programs. Really, I don't want to make it too of a big picture thing here, but like, if Arkansas wins this game, like I said, I feel like you can kind of start having some of these other conversations about, more. I think the focus will shift more to this actual season. Whereas like right now during this week, the reason we keep having all these NIL conversations is because no one cares about the individual games. Like the result of this game means nothing to the fan base really, because they're just kind of all moved on and checked out anyway. And so we'll see if they still feel that way Saturday. But I feel like this is such a swing game for both teams where if Arkansas loses this game, the big picture does look a little shaky. Whereas if Arkansas wins, I feel like, right back on track, 3-1, the playoffs still in play.
Do we see an uptick in Arkansas Edge donations if Arkansas wins this game on Saturday?
According to Yurachek, there was like 300 people that signed up yesterday. So
that's right.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that maybe they invited the friends and family discount to try to get them to add in. If it was just as simple as 300 people in one day just asking for it. So,
no kidding.
So the injury report that was officially released for Arkansas, here's a look at it. SEC play we know is officially starting up. And you got a few of them that are pretty obvious, ones that we kind of understood and kind of knew. But there's no doubt that seeing those defensive backs, especially Jalen Braxton and Hudson Clark being out, not questionable, not probable, not doubtful, not whatever terms they want to use. Those are the big ones. Patrick Kudus, we know, is going to be out and doesn't look like he's going to come back anytime soon. I know the media is really upset about Andreas Poski being out. I don't know what they're going to do and asking about those questions. But, the Braxton and Clark thing, we knew they'd been dealing with injury, but not having them against Auburn, especially since Arkansas's pass defense has struggled as it is this year, not exactly the most ideal situation to find yourself in on the SEC on the road.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's especially given kind of some of the messaging that we heard from Sam Pittman after the game on Saturday and early in the week. I felt like Braxton I thought he might be on this list, but maybe in that probable range. So that's not good, man. I don't know what kind of setback he had or what's going on, but he's, I think, just very clearly, one of your best players in the secondary, certainly your best corner. And to not have him for the SEC opener on the road is that's tough. And, people say what they want about no fly zone and Hudson Clark, but you could have used him last week, and he's got a lot of leadership and a lot of experience back there. So no doubt. I mean, those are guys that you really wish you would have, and they're going to have to figure out some things in terms of depth there on the back end. I think it's good to see Addison Nichols there as probable. They got to figure out some things at center. Me and Andrew talked about this a little bit earlier today. No Rashad Dubinion on this list. And so maybe it's just really truly is an RB4 situation. That one's going to continue to baffle me the further along we get without Dubinion playing football.
Yeah, it seems like Rashad Dubinion. I mean, and Sam Pittman kind of laid some foundation for this where he was like, he needs to practice. He said that a couple of weeks ago. So I wonder if he maybe worked his way into the doghouse with how he handled situations post-injury, because it's been a while. I mean, he played week 1. So it's like, unless there was a setback, and this injury report seems to clear that up, that like there's no longer an injury situation going on. I wonder if maybe he either got surpassed during that time period or just maybe got on the coach's wrong side there for a while. But nonetheless, I mean, it would be nice to see him get back in there. And you see Jaquin Jackson there listed as probable, which I think that probable chart there, that all those guys there, like, I mean, it is what it is. They're probable. But yeah, it is good to see Addison Nichols among them. But yeah, I just didn't expect it to be as lengthy a list as it is there for our first official SEC injury report. This is history.
Yeah, and there may be some gamesmanship done in there too. I went on an Auburn podcast last night actually, and they were asking about Jaquin Jackson and saying, "Oh, is he probable? I mean, he's not going to. Is he banged up? Is he going to be able to play? Is he going to be 100%?" And it's like, well, I think he's going to play just as much as he would if he was 100%. Like that, it's just that's what's so funny about it with probable. It's like we know that these guys are going to play, but what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for anybody other than just saying that, hey, they're kind of dealing with some pain, but nah, they're still going to play and still going to be just fine. So, but if this is what the situation is going to look like for that injury report, I guess we get to look forward to it each and every week. So, are they releasing it, I guess, on the same day every week? Is it a Wednesday thing, or is it just kind of depending on the team?
Yeah, I think it's Wednesday evening. And then I think an hour before kickoff on game day. If there's one in between there, for some reason, I felt like that was the case, but I don't know for sure. At the very minimum, yeah, Wednesday night and then before kickoff. And somebody asked in the chat, I'll pull it up actually real quick. From Blake, he says, I assume that if you're out, you can't be updated later. I would guess so, right? Like if you list Braxton as out, then you just know for sure he's not going to play. Because I think that's kind of the point. Like you don't want to be shady, list the guy as out, and then all of a sudden he's out there, taking the first snaps of the game. So, I think if there was any potential that he would be able to play, they put him at questionable or doubtful or something else. But out seems like out to me. Otherwise, it gets into some murky area.
Well, and it's also Wednesday nights, at 7 p.m. Whereas before, back in the day, I mean, even at the SEC teleconference, you're getting Pittman at 10:40 before they practice that day, Wednesday. I feel like that gives them they should have a pretty firm understanding. Because, like, if you haven't participated in practice Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, the idea that you're going to like make a crazy, like, I don't know if there's much to do from an injury standpoint on a Thursday or Friday at practice to prove that you're willing to play. So yeah, I would assume that there's some type of rule, but I was also wondering, like, where do they draw the line? Like, how hard are they going to be, watching these teams in terms of like, oh, you listed this guy as doubtful, but now he seems pretty fine to me. He seems healthy to me. Like, I wonder at what point, like, what's the fact checking like for this kind of stuff? Like, yeah. I don't know where they draw the line. Like, what if Addison Nichols, they're like, actually, he was worse than probable, we determined. Like, I don't know. I just don't know how they're doing some of this.
Yeah, and I don't even know if there's going to be any sort of fines or anything like that. I don't know how they're going to handle any sort of punishments, and if there is any, or if it's just you're ineligible to play. I don't know. But that's kind of what is an ever-evolving thing now. That's just like everything else in college football. New stuff, new policies, new approaches. It's ever-changing, so I don't think it's going to be set in stone. We'll probably see it evolve over time and maybe get closer to what the NFL is doing. Yeah,
for sure. I wonder what the chain of command is with that, like how it goes between, I'm sure the head coach has to sign off, obviously, on anything that's put on that report, but it's also the med staff, like the trainers and the team docs and everything. I bet that could be some interesting conversation. Maybe it's just interesting to me because I used to tape ankles for a living, but I would like to be in there and listen to some of that where, a trainer or a team doc is like, he could probably go. And then maybe there is some gamesmanship involved. Like John said, like, oh, well, maybe we put him as questionable instead of probable. Because who's to say what that really means, So
I used to really love in Hard Knocks when they would have like the injury, like the trainers come and be in the meeting with the coaches and kind of give the report. And the coaches are like, can this guy practice? Can this guy practice? Can we get an offensive lineman to practice? Can you have any of them? Like, they're just looking, they're like chewing out the trainers for just delivering the bad news. So yeah, I bet these are some funny conversations.
By the way, folks, if you want to get in on the conversation, not only do you have the chat that is there, but you can also call in at 478-344-6623. Do have our phone lines and do have them open, so you can get in on the conversation that way. Or if you need something easier, it's just 478-34, I'm mad, because most of the time people are going to call in because they're mad. So pretty self-explanatory there. Speaking of with this game and everything, this was an interesting quote. There has been some interesting things coming out from the Arkansas and UAB game in general. I know that's past, everyone's moved on and everything. But, Trent Dilfer had a lot of insight that was provided. But one, they had that article written, I believe it was on CBS Sports by Talty, that was talking about the behind the scenes with not only Trent Dilfer, but Alex Morrison preparing for Arkansas and some of the things that went into it. But then Trent Dilfer actually goes on the Cuban Mac show out of there in Birmingham and discusses this game and discusses the going up against Arkansas, and had some pretty interesting things to mention from the game, and maybe something that could impact Arkansas moving forward this season.
Well, in the SEC, it'll be different than how we had to defend it. In the SEC, I think they're vulnerable to be challenged at the line of scrimmage. I think you can load people around the line of scrimmage and challenge them to win one-on-one matchups. They have one very good wide receiver that will win some of his one-on-one matchups in the SEC, but not all. You're going to have to add a hat near the line of scrimmage to defend 11-on-11 football, the quarterback and the run schemes. And he's using all his Lamar Jackson stuff from Louisville. So we went back and studied some of it. Well, we're kicking ourselves in the tail as we didn't go way back. We should have watched every Lamar Jackson clip. Instead, we watched probably 30 to 40%. They pulled out, old school double sliders, misdirection, like they pulled off quarterback pin and pull, stuff they did to Lamar, and he hadn't done it at Missouri State. So it's going to be really hard to play both. But I do think the SEC, my point being, is you have more physical perimeter players that can hold up. You can get home a little quicker. You have better pass rushers. And I do think the formula to defeat Arkansas's offense, or at least slow them down, is to really challenge zero pressures, mug pressures, lots of people around the line of scrimmage, and make him throw one-on-ones. The offense is built for zone coverage. So everything they do is built for zone coverage, and then you're going to add a hat in zone coverage, and the run game's built to beat it. If you can play tight man, load the line of scrimmage, and which Auburn can do, you'll have a real chance of slowing them down.
So you have Trent Dilfer kind of laying it out of what he saw against him and the approach that he had. Granted, didn't equate to a win, but it equated to a good performance by UAB. And I am sure that Auburn and Hugh Freeze and everybody on that coaching staff not only watched a lot of what that game was against UAB for Arkansas, but also I'm sure talked to Trent Dilfer and any coaches that were on there and that staff trying to get any sort of insight into the Hogs too.
God, man, I had both of you guys already listened to that before the show. I had not heard that. Man, I feel exposed. Like I feel seen as a Razorback supporter. That's crazy, man. But hey, I mean, in ways, if you go back and look at the game, it sounds like he's right about a majority of those things. That's gosh, yeah. Between that and that article with Talty, it just shows you how prepared they were, and it almost like amplifies the lack of preparation on the Arkansas side for that game. My goodness, that was a lot.
The only thing I'll push back on from what he said is, if you can play tight man coverage, you can slow them down, and Auburn can do that. I want to push back on the Auburn can do that part, because I think that's a huge question when you think about Arkansas moving forward in this matchup. According to Pro Football Focus, Arkansas has the worst defensive secondary coverage grade in the SEC, but Auburn is not far behind in that 12 to 13 range. They're tied there with, I can't remember who it was, but Auburn's below, their bottom tier in the SEC, and I think they have the worst pass defense yardage wise in the SEC. And so I think that's going to be a very big key, is Auburn effectively able to match up with these receivers and kind of limit Andrew Armstrong and force these other guys to beat him in man coverage? I think that's a very valid question, because I think we all have concerns about Arkansas's other receivers in terms of being able to get open consistently. Armstrong's really the only one we know we can count on. But I am interested to know if Auburn is going to be able to be the team that exposes that. Because in terms of what he said, it's hard to argue, because we kind of saw it play out. Like, that game was way closer than it should have been. And I know Talon missed throws and Arkansas failed to get up for it and all these things. But I feel like UAB is a really bottom tier FBS team. So the fact that they were within 10 points of Arkansas tells you a little bit about what they were able to do as a coaching staff. I mean, I don't think there's any disagreements here.
Well, and also too, like, it's going to make up for it for Arkansas, where you combine the fact that you had players last week that were talking about UAB and didn't know what they were doing, or at least didn't kind of blew it off a little bit. I'm not saying that this is what they did, but the only logical response or answer to be maybe why they did that, not saying it's right, would be, hey, we're preparing more for Auburn because that's going to be a bigger game. Now, if that game against Auburn equates to a win, then it's something that I was like, all right, it was worth the while. It was worth all that time and effort that you put into it. But if they come out and they lay an egg against Auburn or have some of the same issues that we've been seeing or whatever it may be, then suddenly it's going to be like, okay, maybe this team, in the way that they prepare and the way that they approach teams and the way that they go throughout the game week, there seems to be some sort of disconnect or something off about them because, again, it's all worth it if you win. It's all worth it if you perform. But if you didn't know anything about UAB because you were looking ahead, and you even by looking ahead, you still have nothing to show for it the next week, then it's not going to exactly be worth anyone's while.
Yeah. No, that's a very valid point. And I know that it's been said a million times. It's like Sam Pittman said on Monday, like you answer questions and sometimes it sounds like you're making excuses, but you're really just trying to answer the question. But I do wonder how much different it would have looked had Travis Williams not been having a baby. I mean, congratulations to him. You're happy for him, obviously, but he's in and out of the building throughout the course of the week. Did that impact things? I'm sure it was at least a different vibe, different look around there. Sam mentioned the guys who were hurt and the lack of physicality. That's all things that they could have avoided. What they could not have avoided was Travis Williams not being there for periods of time. So yeah, hopefully they I don't know. I guess you don't want to over scheme. Hopefully they overcorrect to the point where they're fully prepared for this one. And he's facing his alma mater. I feel pretty confident that the defensive side of the ball is going to be much better in this game than they were last week. Some of the other things that Trent Dilfer was talking about there, I don't know. I guess the jury's still out, but I'm giving T. Will a mulligan, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and to your point, John, it's one of those things you can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, well, we didn't come out against UAB because we were looking ahead to Auburn and then not show up for the Auburn game, because then it kind of disqualifies your logic right there. But also, I will just say, for anyone like casual observers that think that it's a real thing that happens where teams are looking past and they're scheming for Auburn the week of the UAB game, I understand it sounds good in theory to say that and be like, oh, yeah, maybe they were looking past them. And if you're talking about mentally, maybe the players were already looking ahead. But in terms of actual preparation for the game and what you do throughout the week at practice, there just are not football teams, even at the high school level, that do that. And if they are, they're like coaches are real like renegade weirdo. You know what I mean? Like that's a really bold thing to do. Like actual football teams just don't do stuff like that. Like they're not preparing for the next week's game during a week. Like maybe those players in their free time or maybe taking a little bit of a peek, but and like I said, maybe mentally framing it, but I don't buy that being a real excuse of like something that they would actually have been doing last week in practice.
Well, especially given the fact that, with each coach has said coach speak where players or whoever's like, we're focused on the next game. And I think in everybody's mind when fans hear that and whatever, it's like, okay, you have to say that. But it is a mentality that you have to have, and it is about the next game. And that was my whole thing about UAB. And they didn't lose, so it's not like it was this detrimental thing. Because at the end of the season, if Arkansas goes 8-4 or something solid, no one's going to look back and be like, yeah, 8-4 was great, but they barely beat UAB. It's like, no, you've got the win. That's all that matters to anybody. But what worried me, and this is what frustrates me about Arkansas, and especially times under Sam Pittman, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a gimme win. That's not a cliche. That's a fact for Arkansas, because you have lost non-conference games against lesser opponents, even at home, that you shouldn't have. And there could have been various reasons for that. They lost to Liberty. They lost to BYU. They lost to teams that they should have beat at home or anywhere. But for whatever reason, they ended up losing it. And that's what is the thing where it's like, you're not good enough to overlook anybody. No one is, but especially you, Arkansas, because even if you don't overlook them, you still have problems of beating these teams. You don't have that much talent. So I'm going to be really critical of how this team comes out against Auburn, especially in the beginning part, because if they don't come out looking like a team that's ready for them and prepared for them and looking like a team that has a game plan together that they can execute, then I think it's fair to start questioning what this team's doing during the week as far as their preparation for the next opponent.
Yeah, no doubt. And to further your point, especially in this particular game with Auburn's track record so far this season of getting off to really slow starts before they settle in and make some adjustments and play better. And then the situation with the quarterback where he's, his second career start, first in the SEC. And Hugh Freeze has kind of been on the record already saying, yeah, like I don't want to say dumbing things down, but like we're not trying to put too much on the guy's plate. We just want to have the handful of things that we do really, really well and really focus on executing those so that they're simplifying the game plan for him. And so that should work into your favor if you're Arkansas in terms of preparation. So yeah, if they don't get off to a good start, that's definitely not a good sign.
And I mean, I think it really helps that Hank Brown played a game against New Mexico. Like I weirdly think, like I'm sure it's going to help him feel more comfortable going into this game. But I also think it gives Arkansas a little bit of something to look at, because I think that's something we've talked about a good bit with Talon is like the more teams start to have film on him, the better they're going to have an idea of what his strengths and weaknesses are. And we're kind of already starting to see that show up. It's going to be the same with Hank Brown and this Auburn offense. And so we'll see. I definitely do buy the T-Will aspect of this in terms of the preparation. And so I'm interested to see if this defense has some wrinkles. I'll tell you what I'm tired of hearing, though. From and I'm not trying to knock the fans, but I've seen a lot of people being like they're just being vanilla on purpose. They weren't going to show too much against UAB, and they're waiting to get Luke Has involved because they're going to wait and show it's like a secret they're keeping hidden. I'm tired of that narrative, and so if you've got any skeletons in the closet, let's see them. Let's see what you got hiding. Let's see the boogeyman underneath the bed. No more time to conserve anything and not show your best stuff. Like, let it all hang out on Saturday.
Phone number is 478-344-6623 if you want to get in on the conversation here on Inside Arkansas Live. I had an interesting convo then also with another interview for last night with an Auburn guy. He was asking me my thoughts on Hugh Freeze. And it got me to thinking where, Hugh Freeze, when he was at Ole Miss, we know like what all went down, and say what you want about the off the field stuff and about recruiting and everything. But the guy had success, and he beat Alabama back-to-back years, which like two other people in the history of college football have done. So he didn't get an SEC Western Division title thanks to a Hunter Henry heave on 4th and 25, but still really good. But right now, where the SEC is at 16 teams, where do you guys rank Hugh Freeze among all SEC coaches? And it doesn't have to be a specific number. It could just be a range of it, but Hugh Freeze right now, where it stands at Auburn, where does he rank among all these great SEC coaches?
I don't know, probably towards the top of the middle tier. Is that fair?
Towards the top of the middle tier. So you're talking about, would that be like 5 through 7, something like that?
Sure.
5 through 8.
Yeah. I think in that range. Without looking at the list of coaches, that's probably where I go.
I think I agree too, like 5 to 7 range. One, not having Saban, I mean, that takes one where, I don't know if you can say DeBoer is a better coach than him definitively. Like, I guess it's TBD. We'll see what he does at Bama. But I think if you're just looking at like the archetype that Freeze fits into, I don't have him above Heupel. I don't have him above Kiffin, but I probably do have him above Drinkwitz in terms of just the offensive guru running his program. And who knows? I mean, Drinkwitz is like 1 or 2 really good seasons away from kind of ending that one as well. But I'd say he's like not in that elite conversation, but right behind it. I think he's pretty proven. He's got a little bit of a duration to him. So I think he's, 6th.
Yeah.
Sound about right.
He's pretty safely ahead of several guys on the bottom tier. I think we can
there's a good bit. There's a good bit on the bottom tier that he's safely better than.
Yeah, because I was looking at it from the ones that are like guaranteed, for sure, no questions asked, higher than. I think we all agree Kirby Smart 100% is above him. Mm-hmm. Would you guys put Steve Sarkisian above him? I probably would at this point.
I think I would.
Yeah,
I would.
I mean, maybe not the same couple years ago, but at this point, yes. I put Sark above him. I put Kiffin above him for sure. I agree with that. And I even put Josh Heupel in front of him. I think I'd put Kalen DeBoer in front of him just because, even though it's his first year at Alabama, the dude's 104-12. Like,
they put together quite the run there at Washington.
Crazy. That vital game.
Yeah. So what about Brian Kelly? Would you put him above Brian Kelly or behind Brian Kelly?
God, I forgot about Brian Kelly.
I would put Brian Kelly above him, even though I don't think Brian Kelly is a great culture fit at LSU, and I think that marriage is doomed a little bit. Brian Kelly's got a pretty lengthy resume of building and having top-notch programs. And I mean, even still, LSU's, what are they ranked, like 14th? You know, like we talk about LSU like they're a sinking ship. It's like they're still, as of right now, one of the better teams in the country. But yeah, I don't know. I think but it comes down to DeBoer and Kelly. But I think we said there's 4 that are definitively over him. So I think we kind of nailed it low key.
Yeah. It's just that he's only been at Auburn for obviously 1 year, and it just makes me wonder about Hugh, where when he was at Ole Miss, and I'm not saying that not everybody was doing it, but when he was at Ole Miss and he had the advantage of having some of the best players, like the number 1 player out of Texas, number 1 player out of Illinois, number 1 player out of Florida, automatically come to Ole Miss after their 6-6 season, which totally makes sense. It's a little bit easier to navigate and to maybe be better than a lot of those other teams, like the Mississippi States, like the Arkansas, even though Arkansas actually had a lot of success against them. But still, it may be put you in a position. But now that everybody can do that, and everybody is doing that, and the SEC continues to grow, that's kind of where my question is going to be for Hugh in the future of Auburn, where Auburn's a good program. I think that they're a better program than Arkansas, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Arkansas or a lot of other programs should be there. But I believe that there's jury's still out on Hugh Freeze, to where if he has another 6-6 year this year at Auburn, they're not going to be happy about that. And especially adding in where the quarterback, it's been a problem, and they haven't been able to get a quality quarterback out of the transfer portal or develop one or anything, especially considering how much Auburn as a program claims to have in their NIL too. So
yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what's their ceiling with this team this year? You know, like I don't know that even if all the chips fall the right way. I mean, I have to look at their schedule, but yeah, 6-6 feels about right to me. And I know that's not acceptable down there, to your point, John. And yeah, the quarterback thing, I know I mentioned earlier in the week, but that's going to forever remain baffling to me that they just were like, you know what, we're all in on Peyton Thorne until week 2 of the season, then we're out. That was a choice, and they, and this is their option behind him and Hank Brown. And hey, maybe this dude is going to be the truth and the next, great story out of Auburn football or whatever. But my goodness, I probably would have addressed that in the offseason if I was him.
It did cross my mind this morning that what if this is just the Hank Brown story, and it turns out that they really do just have like this hidden gem, despite the fact that nobody had ever heard of him, nobody recruited him, nobody even knew his name until Peyton Thorne threw 4 picks. Like, they may have a thing. I wonder if there was a moment this offseason where, because, you talked about that. You don't bring anyone in to compete with Peyton Thorne. So that makes you think, oh, they have a lot of confidence in him, but clearly they don't. So I'm wondering if there was a moment this offseason, maybe in fall camp, where they were like, damn, we really goofed up.
Yeah, I was looking at their schedule too. Of course, Arkansas is up this weekend. Then they have Oklahoma at home, which I low-key forgot that, or didn't think that Oklahoma was ranked, but they're 15th in the country. So
that's going to change soon.
Yeah, I don't see that being
sustained.
But they got Oklahoma at home. Then they go on the road to Georgia. Yeah, that's easy. And then on the road to Missouri. And then they get at Kentucky and Vanderbilt, which winnable games, UL Monroe. But then they end the season, the final 2 games with Texas A&M at home and then at Alabama. So it's not exactly like the schedule just sets up for them to improve upon the 6-6 year, because even if they beat Arkansas, they would have to beat probably Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and UL Monroe, and that would get them to 6 wins.
Yeah,
I believe. So, I mean, that's the only ones I could see where it's like, oh yeah, those could be easy wins or more likely wins, even if they beat Arkansas.
Hey, for everyone in the comments, I've seen a few now that are like trying to talk themselves into Trent Dilfer as the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Please stop.
Why are y'all doing that? Like, no disrespect. I love Trent Dilfer. I really do, because like I used to listen to him all the time. But like, the guy's like 5-12 at UAB. I think you got to let him at least get a record above 500 before you start throwing him SEC coaching jobs.
He had a nice game plan for Arkansas.
Like, if you fire Pittman to bring in Trent Dilfer, that is how you really blow up the fan base. Like, that's how you blow it all up completely. No disrespect to Trent Dilfer, I'm just saying.
Well, that's a fan base that lives in the actual moment, because it's an ever changing, where it's the flavor of the week. Whoever is somebody that they're like, oh, I liked what he said, or oh, I liked what he did. Therefore, it means that him coming here will mean instant and high level success.
My dad did that with the ULM coach back in the day, where he's like, hey, I really like that offense. And then we looked at him, we were like, oh, he went 10-30 at Army, maybe not.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with the Scott Frosts of the world, where they win at a high clip at somewhere, and it's like, oh yeah, just put them at this program, and therefore they'll be awesome. Doesn't always work that way. It's not as simple as that, but some people like to make it that way. It goes back to people just wanting to throw out, hey, we got our own names that haven't been mentioned before, so we want to look like we're innovative and really.
I mean, that's literally how Pittman got hired, if you remember. Yeah. Like they kind of started as one of those things. Like, hey, why not this guy?
Yeah.
He was good at O-line. Why not him?
Yeah, if they're going to keep asking those questions until things change. Addison says 8 out of 12 games at home for Auburn. What's that like? Yeah, no kidding. That's
they haven't left home yet.
Yeah,
they play 5 straight home games, and Arkansas travels for 5, or is in a different place for 5 straight games to start the year. It's crazy.
It's like that. And I saw Missouri's got something similar. I think they have 5 straight home games to start their year. Yeah, it's almost like imagine if we're here in Arkansas and we're going to 5 straight games in Fayetteville to start the football season. Like that just doesn't even seem real. Doesn't even seem like it's a thing that could happen. Just back to back Saturdays of having those games. Yeah. But then again, the way the Razorbacks have been playing at home recently, maybe that's not the best case scenario for them. Let's see. Yeah. Leonard says, we are only counting down losses to fire Pitt because of his good start and Hunter Yurachek's crappy contract. So Leonard Ghostal, by the way, shout out to you for that. Yeah, that's like people are just still, it's amazing that every day in the chat, which is always a cesspool as it is, but people are just going to throw in like, Pitman needs to be gone. Pittman needs to be gone. Pittman needs to be gone. They're just going to keep hammering that until it gets to that point.
Well, and look, like there's totally like, I think there's obviously, we're not idiots here. There's very much a path to Pittman not being the head coach at Arkansas, like pretty soon. It is just like funny how it's week 3 and we're the guys that have kind of been talking about this a lot. And even we're like, hey, can we just like wait until the conversation, like wait until they actually lose the games? Because then we can really have the conversation. But right now, trying to have the conversation in the middle of the football season, like even in November, the college football world is going to be completely different. There'll be new head coaching candidates, new names that get floated around and stuff like that. Like we can just we can have that conversation.
Yeah. I promise you that at the end of the year, if there is a change at Arkansas, I promise you that Trent Dilfer is not going to be any of the ones that people bring up.
He's not on the hot board.
No, he will not be. The planes will not be tracked from Birmingham. Evan says, yes, one of y'all started this one, but is it normal for teams to close practice to the media?
More normal than you'd think. Yeah, up until this year, Arkansas had pretty good access, like comparable to the SEC. But I mean, they opened it up for all of fall camp, and not a lot of schools do that. Honestly, I mean, you get more than you typically do during the season. But I don't think we're really losing out on that much by them closing it up this year. In the past, it was literally like the first 15 minutes of a Monday practice, which is like non-padded and pointless, and Tuesday, and then you don't see anything else. So it's definitely a change. It's something different under Pittman, but it's not crazy. It's not that unusual.
Yeah, I would actually argue that in the past, Arkansas was among the most like lackadaisical in the SEC in terms of letting, like I know like a lot of schools that have been closed throughout the week leading up to games like for the past several years. Like I think there was a point last year where Arkansas was one of like 2 or 3 SEC teams that let any access during the season at all. And so, yeah, it is actually pretty normal for SEC teams to close practice, except for Texas. I don't know if they still are, but they used to be like their media would be at like every single minute of every practice.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll at USC, I remember when he was there, he literally would just have anybody, even fans, like just show up and watch practices. But every coach is different, and it's one of those things that don't get brought up until coaches start losing. Then they're like, hey, we need to be watching these practices. That's unfair. It's like when they're winning, nobody cares. Tristan says UAB figured out Arkansas. No, Arkansas played like trash, played slow and not motivated at all with consistent quarterback play. Arkansas is a top 15 team. Okay,
but here's my thing. You can't have it both ways, where you can't say Arkansas is a top 15 team. They just completely didn't show up for the 3rd game of their season, their home opener. Like it can't be both. Like if Arkansas is a top 15 team, then you would be arguing that UAB really did figure them out, and that's why the game was closer. But if UAB didn't figure them out, then how is Arkansas a top 15 team if they only beat UAB by 10? Am I making sense? Like you can't have both things. You can't say Arkansas is a top 15 team and UAB did not figure them out. Like both of those things cannot be true.
Yeah, it felt like two separate statements almost. But
yeah,
I mean, no argument in terms of Arkansas not playing well or looking motivated in that game. But from a schematic standpoint, I mean, I think Dilfer is on to something with the way they prepared and the things they tried to take away and the things they did that they found success in. It wasn't just as simple as they rolled out there without a plan and Arkansas sleptwalked and they almost got beat. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. So,
I mean, I'll just say this: UAB's defense offered substantially much more resistance than Oklahoma State's defense, even though Arkansas made more mistakes against Oklahoma State. Like their defense did not have answers for Arkansas at all. UAB didn't have all the answers, you know, and I think the quarterback run game ended up being kind of the thing they weren't the most prepared for down the stretch. And Arkansas kind of forced Arkansas to go to that a lot, but they definitely had more answers than UAPB or Oklahoma State did. So
Sam Pittman's cold beer also says Sam on last night on his show said that they are going full pads today. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Don't they usually go softer on a Thursday?
That's risky to me, man. I mean, I understand the whole thing about you walked up to the podium and you said that your team was not physical enough in practice leading to a week in which they weren't physical on the football field. So I understand wanting to put an emphasis on that or whatever, but you're 48 hours from a game. It's rare to go full pads on a Thursday. And so whatever, if you can recover and everything, that's fine. But if we wake up Saturday morning and we see new names on that injury report, it's probably a question worth asking about, right? I mean,
100%. I actually think this is very interesting. And Pittman historically, he's been kind of a dog chasing his tail in terms of what to do at practice. Because you remember he used to be like, hey, we just want to keep our guys healthy. We're not going to tackle all the way to the ground during camp. And then the season comes around and they can't tackle. So he's like, all right, we learned our lesson. Now we're going to be tackling to the ground a lot. And then you have a bunch of injuries. And now you're over here saying, oh, well, we weren't physical enough at practice. So now we're going to be overly physical. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, Mr. Pittman. Genius. I'm going to say that they are going full pads, but that they're probably not going to be just hitting like crazy. It's just more to have the full pads, just so you know this is how we're going to be tackling against full pads in the game. Hopefully there's not a ton of changes to what they're actually doing at practice. Hopefully it's literally just them wearing full pads.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also to your point, it makes me wonder because Sam Pittman, has obviously been around a lot of programs, and he always talked about when he first arrived at Arkansas, just how he brought a lot of these concepts or ideas or approaches or whatever from Kirby Smart and at Georgia. And so it just makes me wonder with the back and forth, unable to figure out what to do in practices and everything. To me, it's just my reckless assumption. It's almost like, okay, well, they did that at Georgia. Well, the difference is it's Georgia with Georgia athletes that are really good at football, that are NFL draft picks. And at Arkansas, you're just not that. And you're not good enough to just take it easy during the week of practice and then assume that you're just going to show up and be able to make tackles. So to me, that's been the thing that Sam Pittman's had to maybe figure out a little bit more where, there's a lot of stuff that you want to mimic from Georgia. They're a great program to mimic. They're a great program to try to do the same things over there. But you also have to adjust to what you have here at Arkansas because you're not going to have the luxury of the plethora of talent and athletes at Georgia that you're going to have at Arkansas. So that makes me wonder if maybe that was just something that he maybe overestimated or underestimated, depending how you look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. There's levels to this. Even in the SEC, they're not all created equal. So, yeah.
Well, and you have a team full of 100 dudes. It really is impossible to have the answer that works for all of them. You just one of those things. And I think program to program, you just never know what's going to work and what doesn't. And on Saturday, you can always blame it on something.
Yep. Also, there was another chat too that I wanted to bring up about Luke Has. I saw this from Megan. She's, I guess, behind because we were talking about him earlier. But she says that's not true. Hearing has become frustrated with the lack of touches. I don't know. I'm not saying that it's not the case because he is lacking a lot of touches, but
he should be, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, right. I don't know if that's true or not. I have no reason to doubt Megan. I haven't heard that, but I would be frustrated with a lack of touches at this point for sure.
Yeah. And he needs to be, because if he's as big of a threat as what he showed last year and what people believe he is, to have 5 catches in 3 games ain't it. And I know he's been battling injury, but geez, you've been fine. You've been fine enough to play. You're fine enough to get catches, or at least you're fine enough to get targets. Because that's another thing too, is you just haven't been targeted. Like that's the rough part about it.
Was he on that? He wasn't on that injury report as probable or anything, right?
Nope.
So yeah, there you go.
The back is healed up.
Yeah, he is 100%, and that's going to be the thing. People are going to look at this. Yeah, you're 100%. That means you're ready to go. You're good enough to go. So there should be no problems there.
Oh, I wonder if Pittman's going to get himself in trouble. I'm going to go ahead and predict this right now. Pittman will get himself in trouble by saying something. You know how like he did the other day where he's like, Nichols was banged up all week. I will bet my entire life that by the end of this year, Pittman says, oh, so-and-so, well, he was limited in practice this week when they weren't on the injury report. I will bet anything.
It's going to happen this week.
I think I was just thinking he's going to do it with Haz. He's going to be like, well, the reason we didn't go to him today is because he's been banged up in practice all week. And we're like, dude, you didn't put him on the injury report.
And we didn't know if he's going to be able to go. We met as a staff on Saturday morning.
Yeah. What are the chances that, let's just be honest, let's be factual about this. There is no way that Sam Pittman's the one that put together that injury report. And he's not the one that he's like, okay, he's not reading off the list. Okay. This person questionable. He didn't do that. Like that was made by somebody else.
He puts that injury report together about like he puts that depth chart together every Monday.
Yep. So that's where it's going to get him in trouble, is because the fact that he's not the one that puts it out there. It's going to be something on there that he thinks is right or he thinks is not on there, and then he's going to say it, and then suddenly people are going to get confused, and then he's going to get a little frustrated because of the confusion.
Kyle, is Eli Stein still here? Is he still here?
He forgot who the fourth captain was last night at the Catfish Hole. He was just like, "Oh, I just announced it a couple hours ago. Kyle, help me out, Kyle." And it was like this awkward pause for about 15 seconds. He's like, "Campbell."
Oh,
it's funny.
The one good one.
No, well, if you know that if Kyle's over there and he's struggling to get it too, then maybe you need to go back to the thing of just having normal captains that are all there.
Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't change them every week, and it'd be easier to remember.
Did I see? I guess I saw that. Like one of the captains is a guy that didn't even play, that offensive lineman.
Josh Street.
Yeah,
Josh Street.
They call him Josh Street Clothes.
They put him in. Apparently, he got in. There's like a goal line package that they call muscle, and he's on the muscle package because Sam was. I don't know why I listened to the Catfish Hole last night. Anyway, I did.
Crazy behavior.
I know, but he was like, "Oh, it's funny seeing him on muscle because I don't see the muscle on him." He, little joke. That's the only reason I remembered that. But Josh Street has a package.
He's what Dan Skipper is to the Detroit Lions.
Package. Yeah, that's right.
You got a nice package yourself, Curtis.
Yeah. Thanks.
Glad we're going down this route. Sure, nobody will clip that at all. Oh,
Great.
Goodness. Anyways, well, I would have judged you more if you went to the Catfish Hole than actually listening to it, because at least that's all you did. But
yeah, I did not do that.
Nah, don't be the people out there chanting. I like this. Leonard says, Outlook is as faded as John's shirt. Yeah, this is a good shirt.
I like that shirt.
That's the vintage Hawks run through the A. It's supposed to be that, I think. I don't know. Tristan says, hey, if you want to get Curtis fired up, just talk about Haz's involvement in the offense.
I got it out of my system the other day.
Yeah.
And also Tristan says, John, where's the enthusiasm you had before week 1? Have you watched the team? Like that's
I was with John when the enthusiasm left his body. We were in Stillwater.
Yeah, like
it's tough.
Yeah, because that's like the third time I've gotten that question, not just in the stream, but like on Twitter and everything. And they're just like, "Hey, I thought you were all excited." I'm like, "Have you watched the team?" Like I feel like it's a pretty normal thing to lose enthusiasm when the team looks like crap. Maybe I'm the weird one.
People really view it through the lens of like, if these people really liked and loved this team and loved this program, they would never speak poorly of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't understand. It's like, if we didn't care about the team, then we wouldn't speak the way we speak about them. Like, we are frustrated with Luke Haz's involvement in the offense. Like, it's like, I don't know. I don't understand it. Like, why we're not allowed to be critical of something that we love.
Well, it's the same thing. It's like if I don't have kids, but I feel like it's probably the same thing as a parent. Just because you get onto your kid and you're disappointed in your kid and you get mad at your kid and your kid frustrates you doesn't mean you still don't love your kid. I mean, it's just part of it. It's that type of relationship. Except, your kid always just tries to like murder your soul every weekend, and you have to deal with that. Let's see. I guess Eugene Ledbetter said Metcalf at nickel, which, I mean, that's what's going to be interesting to see what the secondary even looks like in this game.
Yeah, buddy.
And who they're going to be rotating. So
yeah, because Nico Slaughter's struggling out there. And that's something, in fairness, that Sam was asked about. I think that came from the teleconference yesterday, and he said he's confident in young Metcalf, Tevis Metcalf, and Larry Worth as options back there. I believe neither one of those things, actually, because we heard it all fall and we haven't seen those guys, and the incumbent has been struggling, but maybe now's the time.
Anytime he says they've got a plan, that dude ain't playing. Larry Worth is not going to touch that field on Saturday. And Tevis Metcalf, I don't believe he's played on defense yet outside of maybe the UAPB game. I don't think like they've even come close to playing him at nickel. And it's maybe this is the week that they start to change that. But until they do, I don't know.
See,
if you have to constantly announce that you have a plan, you have no plan.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to constantly say, I have a plan, you don't have a plan. Simple as that. All right. So we do this every Thursday too. And it's part of one of our great sponsors here at Inside Arkansas. It's BetSaracen and the BetSaracen app. It's the best sports betting app in the state, bar none. So download it today at the iOS or Android store and get to betting here in the state of Arkansas. And we got a few things that we're going to be doing as far as our prop bets that we're going to be looking at. And I actually had a chance to put some of these up so we can kind of look at them ourselves, and also the audience can look at them, which is probably pretty helpful. But you could just also go to, of course, BetSaracen.com and do it yourself. Not really any long shots like we've seen previously when it comes to these prop bets, but we'll start with the one with the greatest odds. Tyrone Broden, over 4.5 total receptions and over 34.5 total receiving yards. Y'all touching that?
Hell nah.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I mean, 4.5 receptions is going to be tough.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see that if it was like 2.5 receptions and over 34.5 yards, maybe. But considering how this guy has, I don't know if his confidence is lost, but he ain't catching balls very easily, and I don't even know how much they're going to be targeting him, and I just don't know. So for that to be the plus 125. That's a lot. It's probably not one I'm touching. But
does he have 5 catches this season?
If he does, it's just at 5. Like they
would have all came in that Oklahoma State game. He had like 4 or 5 then. But yeah, I don't know. He maybe caught 2 in the opener.
Yeah, I just don't see that.
I hope he does, but
I don't get how that's plus 125 for him to have 5 receptions.
That's what I'm saying. Like I would even say if it was over 4.5 total targets. Like that would maybe make sense.
Which he did have last week. He had 6 targets, just did not lead to any receptions.
Yeah, which that's why they have those targets, and that's why they track those, just to show you how many times that they tried to get on the ball but couldn't. Speaking of people who try to get the ball and can't, Braylon Russell, the freshman running back out of state of Arkansas, plus 135, over 29.5 rushing yards and over a half total rushing touchdowns. I'm also not touching this one.
Yeah, I'm not either. I have a hunch that I know where Andrew might go with this, but yeah, I don't have any reason to just yet. I mean, if you look at the stats so far in the season, where's he at? Braylon Russell has 4 carries for 25 yards on the entire season. And I'm not saying his role is never going to increase, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, on our show today, my bold prediction was that Braylon Russell was going to actually play meaningful snaps. Even having said that, I just don't know if I can take this one because of how high that 29.5 is. Now, if it really were just Braylon Russell touchdown, I could actually get behind it. I mean, he scored a touchdown last week. He scored a touchdown week 1. It seems like if he's going to play, it's going to be by that goal line. I would almost rather this be like a total attempts type of thing. Like if it were like 4.5 attempts and a touchdown, I could get behind that because I actually think there's a path to him being like the second most used running back. But the yardage, I don't know. I don't see him ripping off like a 25-yard run. And I think he's only going to get maximum just a few carries. So I could see him getting the touchdown, but the yardage is a little tough for me.
Yeah, these greater odds ones aren't going very well, or at least aren't that strong right now. At least not the ones that you would think would be at the odds of plus 125.
Never tell me the odds.
Yeah. Well, the other running back, though, is Rodney Hill, and he has a total rushing attempts of over 4.5 and then over 29.5 rushing yards at plus 135. So for that running back, are you going to sprinkle a little bit on it?
I could mess with that one, I think. Way more so than the Braylon Russell one.
Yeah, he's just been on the field more and has gotten 3 or 4 or 5 carries in a few of these games. He only ran the ball maybe once or twice last week, I feel like. But I feel like he ran the ball fairly well. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Braylon Russell and Rodney Hill are going to cancel. Like one of them is going to end up, being the number 2 back on Saturday. And I just don't think they can both hit their things. And honestly, there's a good chance that neither do.
Yeah, and this one for the offense and total first downs, which I find is fascinating because Arkansas is the team that leads the SEC in first downs and in third down conversion and everything. But over 26.5 total first downs and over 13.5 rushing first downs. Honestly, I don't even think that I will take that one just because I don't want to really do my research and I'm too lazy to even think about if that's going to happen or not.
I was legit about to ask if you had the numbers.
So we did this one time though, where we looked up what a normal first down thing is. Mm-hmm. And I think if you score about 20 points, that's about 20 first downs.
So it equates to basically a point per first down pretty much is what you're looking at.
Almost, I guess, but I don't know. I mean,
there we go.
If you get 3, if you get 23, I don't know. I mean, it honestly just depends on how the game plays out. The thing is, I kind of like this prop just because if Arkansas is running the ball a lot, then they will get more first downs rather than if they're throwing the ball, they might score more but get less first downs. Am I making sense there?
Yeah.
So where like if you hit the 14 rushing first downs, then you're probably going to hit the overall one just because you're going to be ball control, not ripping off a ton of huge plays. Like maybe that's the path to do it. So this is probably the prop that intrigues me the most out of the ones we've read so far.
Yeah, because it's the ones that the player props themselves are always a little bit give or take. Don't really know which direction it's going to go. But at least for the stats, I'm looking them up for Arkansas because I had them on hand here. But yeah, you're talking about Arkansas, who is averaging as far as first downs go. I just saw it. Where is it? Yeah, first downs. They have 96 on the season, which is second in the SEC, second in the country. And I guess if you play the averages there, that's what, 32 first downs a game?
That's over 30 a game. They had 29 against UAPB. It doesn't show rushing versus passing first downs. 29 first downs, and they had 427 yards of offense. It's like if Arkansas gets over 400 yards of offense, you feel like they're going to be able to get the 27 first downs, and I would assume most of them would be rushing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would assume too. But, I mean, again, I have no idea what's going to happen in this game, much less the first down ratio of what they're going to be getting either. We don't have to go through all these, obviously, but there's a few of them moving ahead. Like the one about Luke has, which I know we're going to get Curtis fired up about Luke has, but Luke has total. I'm going to have to get Neil on that. I mean, hey, Neil, come on now. Well, we got 2 totals in there. Luke has total targets over 7.5, but over 4.5 receptions at plus 210. It's another one I'm probably not even touching.
No way.
8 targets for Luke has in this game.
I wish he should be getting that per half, but it's not going to happen.
They might not target him 8 times in SEC play.
I don't think they're on pace to. I mean, that's one where I saw it, and I get it. It's a little bit higher odds, but plus 210. No, that needs to be like plus 600.
Yeah, no
something
kidding.
Like that.
Jeez.
If you're going that high. But the one I am looking at, though, is the Andrew Armstrong one. Now, it's plus 210 as well, but it's over 8.5 total receptions, which I don't think is absurd, but also over 94.5 total receiving yards. Does Andrew Armstrong continue on with his dominance as being the lone wide receiver getting a ton of yards for Arkansas?
He's so good, man. He's so good. I can't bet against the man, even though I said on my bold prediction on Pot of That Nature this morning was that Andrew Armstrong would not lead Arkansas in receiving. I had no reason to say that other than just to say something bold. But yeah, he's so good. I can't bet against him. I'm over on anything that they put in front of that man until proven otherwise. He's the real deal.
Well, and look, 9 receptions is that's nothing to scoff at. But he's done it multiple times in his career and at plus 210. And if he gets the 9 receptions, I'm going to assume he gets the 94.5 yards. That would be cruel if he had like 9 catches for 72 yards or something like that. But yeah, plus 210 for Arkansas's best receiver, who they're likely going to lean on a lot. I actually don't like this one. This one seems doable. Now 9 receptions is still a lot, but I mean he had this at Oklahoma State with ease.
Mm-hmm.
So think about this next one too when we're talking about Arkansas's defense. I'm not doing the turnover one because to me they haven't been able to get turnovers, so I wouldn't take that one. However, the Arkansas defensive passing yards allowed over 274.5, as well as rushing yards over 144.5, which is at plus 250.
Nah.
Dang, getting gashed like that.
Man, that would be tough.
For both to happen too.
If Hank Brown throws for 300 on him, that would be that's a loss, is what that is, I think.
Yeah. Well,
even though they are banged up on the back end, but goodness.
John, I know you said you didn't want to do the turnover one, but Curtis, I think this one might actually intrigue you because you do think Hank Brown's going to throw a couple picks, right?
I do think Hank Brown is going to throw a couple picks.
So then Arkansas defense total interceptions over 1.5 and over 0.5 total fumble recoveries. Auburn fumbles the ball a lot. I know you predicted no fumbles, but
fumble-free football, baby.
Plus 260 for 3 turnovers.
That's worth a sprinkle, I think.
Yeah, and then
I mean, come on now. They got to start forcing some more turnovers here at some point. Hank Brown's your guy.
Can I interest you guys in a little Danico Slaughter breakout game?
No.
Probably not.
They got him at over 6.5 tackles and over 1.5 pass breakups. Now, I will say, he did break up, I believe, 2 passes against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
A game where he was targeted 15 times. This one is actually somewhat intriguing to me. Because, all right, Danico Slaughter was targeted 15 times against Oklahoma State, and he was targeted, they said 7 times, but it really felt like 12 against UAB. If he gets targeted 10, 11 times, I could see him racking up the tackles and just accidentally getting in the way of a pass a couple times.
It's not crazy. I don't know if I'd even call that a breakout game. It would depend on other factors, but
that'd be funny if like he had like 5 first-half tackles and 2 pass breakups because they just keep throwing at him and then he gets benched. But it's plus 275, so it's like,
Yeah. If it's that type of thing, I might actually look into it because, yeah, they're going to be targeting him a ton. I mean, they're going to go right at him because they've watched film. They know who to target when it comes to the secondary players for Arkansas. You guys think about the offense? Total team offense for Arkansas over 449.5, and opponent total offense under 399.5 at plus 275. So you're talking about Arkansas getting 450 yards, but holding Auburn to under 400 yards.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but it's not crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. What are we looking at? Odds wise, plus 275.
Yeah, plus 275 for that.
That's a decent little number right there. Because I mean, I think if Arkansas wins, at least one of those things has to happen. They either have to kind of hold them below 400, or they have to move the ball a good bit. I mean, I think both are kind of in play, but I agree. It's one of those, like, I wouldn't necessarily project it to happen, but at plus 275, it's not horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then moving on to a little higher odds here, just a few of them. But this one is for Xavier Sorey. This is the one I was actually looking at. Even though I like the first one, but not necessarily the second one, but it is possible. You got Xavier Sorey, total tackles over 9.5. That's what I like. But over 1.5 total sacks. That's at plus 300.
He does have a sack on the year.
Yeah.
2 sacks from him. Curtis, you actually did kind of hint at something like this because you said you think Arkansas is going to have 3 sacks, but 2 of them are not from the D-line.
Yeah. So maybe they just both be his.
Both just be Xavier Sorey.
Because I really do think that Travis Williams is going to have to get creative in the way he dials things up. So I think we're going to see second and third level blitzes coming from this team. Sorey's let him eat. Just stay off the helmet, dude.
Mm-hmm.
What about Brad Spence over 4.5 tackles and over 1.5 tackles for loss, plus 300?
That's a good one too.
Plus 300. I mean, he had a sack and a tackle for loss last week. I believe he had at least another tackle for loss. 2 tackles for loss is nothing to scoff at for a freshman linebacker, but I think that's actually pretty doable at plus 300.
Yeah, because here's the thing. If you're taking either one of those or both of those, you have to take the next one, too, of Arkansas Arkansas defense total tackles for loss over 5.5 and over 2.5 total sacks.
Give me that in this one.
I was going to say, I actually like, for it, as much as we've made fun of Arkansas's pass rush and said that they haven't been able to generate any pressure, they kind of have to in this game. And Auburn's offensive line, it's not like they're this group that's just Fort Knox. And so, yeah, they maybe get a little weird. 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. I like it.
Well, these next 2 ones are the ones that, to me, I've already taken, and I put a good amount on because I think they're both going to hit. First off, you got plus 325. Both of them are plus 325. But Arkansas total passing yards over 274.5 and over 194.5 rushing yards. I'm taking that. Reason being is because they're going to run the ball, but also Auburn's secondary is worse than Arkansas's, if you can believe it, when it comes to pass defense. I'm taking that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think Taylor Green's going to have a much better game. I really do. And you're right. Auburn's secondary has not been great, and they're super young. So it's going to be like a welcome to the SEC moment, I think, for some of those guys. And then, yeah, I mean, the thing about the rushing is with the Taylor Green factor, you could have just kind of an average day at the office in terms of rushing. But then he just gets loose on a scramble and picks up 45 on one play, and you just kind of picked up for anything you might have lost. So I don't think it's crazy at all, especially at that number.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably be in on that.
One, look, all these may seem ambitious, but Arkansas averages like 550 yards per game. And so obviously we're not saying, hey, they're going to reach all these marks, but they can afford to be a good bit under both of their averages and still hit a lot of these bets. So I definitely don't think that's like out of the realm. And it just really comes down to what type of game do you think this is going to be?
Yeah, and the same thing goes for Jaquindon Jackson, because he's also at plus 325. If you believe in that one and the first one, it seems like it would make sense to do this one, because he has total rushing yards over 134.5 and over total rushing attempts 16.5. I think that's, I know it's a lot of yardage, but I think that the rushing attempts for sure is there, and I think the yardage is going to be there too.
We talked about this one the other day. I actually even said I don't think it's going to hit, but I don't think it should be plus 325 for arguably the best back in the SEC to do what he's pretty much done pace-wise. And if he gets the 17 rushing attempts, you'd imagine he's going to have a chance for the yardage.
Yeah. Yeah, I've already taken stuff on that. Do we even mention the Landon Jackson one? Because that one's dumb. They
love having Landon Jackson to get like 12 sacks or 12 tackles.
Yeah.
He's got to get 2 sacks in this one, but 6 tackles as well. Yeah. I really dead serious think there's a path to him getting multiple sacks and not the 6 tackles.
No, I just
plus
don't
375 though, I should say.
Yeah, that should be higher than plus 375, considering he's been MIA. I don't understand that.
Yeah, so when you don't have one in the entire season, and then you're saying he's going to get 2 in a game. Yeah, it should be higher.
Not going to be happening. And finally, the one with the highest odds, Taylor Green total passing yards over 249.5 and total rushing yards over 84.5 at plus 425. I also took that one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you think Arkansas is going to win the game, then you're taking that with Taylor Green, because he's going to be a big part of the reason why. I think he's going to be better. That might be a little ambitious for my blood, but given the price, yeah, absolutely.
And it kind of goes with the total offense bet, where if Arkansas is running the ball for 200 yards, you'd imagine Taylor Green's going to have a good bit of that. And then, throwing for 270, something like that was the total offense one. And 249 for the passing. That makes sense. Can I tell you guys the one that I secretly really like?
What's that?
TJ Metcalf. Total tackles over 7.5 and over a half interception. He's had the tackles pretty much every game this year. He's racked up tackles, some of which have been very far downfield. He obviously got the pick last week, so it's you're counting on 2 picks in a row, but plus 275. I think the 8 tackles he's probably going to get, just because our Auburn's going to be throwing the ball around the secondary. TJ Metcalf seems to be like the defensive back who just glides to the football and makes the tackles, whether they're 1 yard or 30 yards downfield. So 8 tackles, and he just has to pick off a pass. Plus 275. Not
too shabby.
Yep.
Not bad.
I mean, not bad. Some of them I like, but it's almost like the ones that have the longer odds are the ones that I'm actually in favor of more so, which could be a good thing or end up being just a troll, whatever it is. But
I think I'm in the same boat where the ones that are plus 300, plus 475, those are the ones that I'm kind of it makes sense.
I actually do like this one from David. He says Malachi Singleton over under half snaps played.
Under.
Yeah.
I think, dude, that would be sick if BetSaracen would just be like, hey, here it is, half snap. Because I guarantee you, there's a sports book or like they can find odds for that.
Well, if you think about it too, like, I mean, it could be something. Hey, if Taylor Green's helmet comes off, it's like, there it is. You know, it's all it takes.
That'd be messed up. Taylor Green has the game of his life, but Singleton plays a snap because his helmet came off.
Yep, and ends up being like the play of the game. Like they have to get it. It's like 4th down and goal. Yeah, I'm sure that wouldn't be worse odds in there. But yeah, I do like that though. Let's see. Get to your chat, folks. Again, if you want to call in, you can do so. 478-344-6623. I actually wanted to bring this up because I thought this was an interesting take. I don't know if it was a troll or not. It may have been, but Petrino Durrell, attorney at law, still a great name. I prefer Ty Washington over Luke Has Been. Clever name.
Luke Has Been.
Based on what grounds? Attorney.
Yeah.
That's all I want to know.
I love Ty Washington. And I get, even if you're like, hey, I'm disappointed with Luke Has, which I wouldn't agree with because I think it's more of a scheme and they're not really targeting him much. But yeah, I don't know. I don't understand because I feel like Luke Has, frankly, is Arkansas's best pass catching tight end, their best blocking tight end, and he seamlessly goes between both. Like, I really don't know what the case is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've seen Luke Has at his best, and granted, it was very short period of time last year. But then you also had Ty Washington, who's had some really nice games too. So I think they're both really high quality tight ends. But anybody that thinks that like Luke Has is a has been, as they put it, it's not Luke Has's fault of his lack of role in this game in this team right now. It's not him.
Benching Luke Has is not the answer here. Both of those guys should be parts of the offense.
Yeah,
weekly.
Yeah, it's not an either or, both.
And then don't forget Varkey's Gums. But we won't have to worry about Andreas Posky. He ain't playing. He's out.
It's tough, man.
It's big. 4-string tight end. It's big. I don't know why somebody all highlighted this one. You can sleep in your car, but you can't drive a house. Remember?
I just want to know what that was all about.
Oh,
so if you're still listening, please elaborate. That's all.
I'm guessing that means we should put our house up for sale to fund some of these bets.
Oh,
that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can sleep in your car, but you can't drive your house. I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that would make sense, but I don't think I care that much about it. I don't think I feel that good about any of these bets that are going to be going on, but some may actually feel that way. So yeah, there you have it. There's our BetSaracen prop plays, which I know we'll have our official picks and everything coming out here soon on InsideArkansas.com, and we'll have that for not only Arkansas but also the rest of the SEC. Which, speaking of, is there a SEC game that's got everyone's eyes? Everyone's talking about Tennessee and Oklahoma. I guess that might be the nice fascinating one because of the Heupel angle. But I mean, to me, I think that's more of just like a media thing than necessarily the game itself.
Yeah,
on that front.
I feel like Tennessee might cook in that one. Vandy upsetting Mizzou. Is that this week? I think it's this week.
It is this week.
Yeah.
They're in Como at 3:15.
Get right game for Vanderbilt after a setback.
Man,
I don't even know what other SEC games there are.
Yeah.
It's a rough slate, frankly. I mean, Arkansas Auburn is one of the better ones of the week. LSU's hosting UCLA, who's not very good this year. South Carolina's hosting Akron. Ole Miss is hosting Georgia Southern. Texas hosting ULM, who transitive property is better than Arkansas.
Yeah,
Kentucky, Ohio, Florida, Mississippi State, the Dan Mullen Bowl.
Oh my goodness!
I'm about to say, is that going to be that might be the worst game of the year in SEC play? It has potential to be.
That's a rough one.
I mean, dude, that's one where like Billy Napier, you have to win that game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you seriously have no choice, or else they literally might fire him Monday.
I think he's fired no matter what. Like,
I mean, he's fired no matter what, but I think they would fire him Monday if they lost this one. Although I don't know, Mississippi State did just get an $8 million check. So,
yeah, I was confused by that. So is that it's not to the NIL, it's to the university to try to counter that $20 million deficit that they're about to hit, just like everybody else. Because I saw some people be like, "Oh, they're giving money to the NIL." It's like, nope, that's not.
Yeah, it didn't say anything about NIL in there.
Right.
Because you can't really do that.
Yeah. That's like the same thing that Tennessee's doing with that talent fee, right? It's going towards that whatever the revenue share thing.
Yeah, I think that's the revenue sharing I think is the big thing here, which frankly, I think more teams should be, or more programs should be kind of preparing for the revenue sharing era that we are headed towards.
Yep. I know every school, I think the maximum is 20 million. And then every school in the SEC for sure is going to be doing 20 million. Like they're going to go all in.
And you can't be the one school that's like, we're actually not sharing the full amount.
Yeah.
That would be tough.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's a public way of knowing if you'll be able to see exactly if they are doing the revenue share or not. But that would be quite the thing if somebody was saying, you know what, we're not going to do that because we want to keep that money and not give it to the players. I'm sure they'll do great for recruiting for you. Yeah. And also there was, I was going to mention that another game that was in the SEC that had a point to it. Oh yeah. The LSU UCLA game is like, I feel like, haven't they played each other quite often? Is that just me?
So they beat Ed Orgeron in UCLA. I guess that was 2021, where they opened the season against UCLA, and then now this is the return trip. But I feel like, I don't know, there might have been another game in there somewhere.
Yeah, it seems like they've played quite often, and it's kind
of
a
lot of California schools.
Yeah, and it is kind of frustrating to me too. If just you're an SEC football fan, like you're talking about going into the 4th week of the season. And I know it's going to be different from here on out, but there's not been one marquee, decent, like matchup going into the week for SEC teams this season so far. Like when I'm talking about SEC on SEC, yeah, you had Kentucky and Georgia, South Carolina and LSU, but I think that's kind of low key crazy how you've gone 4 weeks and not having any sort of decent marquee SEC game just yet. I guess Tennessee, Oklahoma, maybe people consider it, but I don't know. Hunter does the scheduling is weird for that.
Bama, Georgia next week,
Sheesh.
I think.
Yeah. Let's say it all kicks back up and goes to another level next week. Of course, can't forget the Arkansas A&M game. Great game there in Arlington.
Yeah, a classic.
Yeah.
I feel like back in the day, you never played conference games early, like this early. Like it'd be like week 3, week 4 before you even like anyone would play a conference game at all. And then it overcorrected for a while where like there'd be like 4 conference games week 1. And now we're back to a normal era where it's like, you know, a few mixed in there here and there.
Well, we actually got a phone call here, and I don't know exactly who it is, but it looks like I'm going to go ahead and say his name is Jacob. Hey, is this Jacob? What's going on, man?
Yeah, what's going on? I was just calling to talk about Sam Pittman. Also, love the show, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
You know, I was wondering if y'all could give me like one good thing he does as a coach, because to me, he doesn't run the offense. He doesn't run the defense. He apparently isn't a great motivator with the way they play at home. So is there one like redeeming quality?
I mean, they brought him in for the main reasons because of his recruiting, which I'm saying what they brought him in for. He was always a great recruiter on the offensive line, considered to be the greatest offensive line coach in the country, which, as we all know, is a very very important thing to have. But I'll admit, like, there's all those things that you wanted to hire him for have kind of waned, and all the things that you thought he was starting to become also kind of waned. So I guess at this point in time, I think he's done a fairly good job of, that's even tough to say that, but I think he's done a good job of, I'll honestly say, I think he's done a good job of hiring assistant coaches like 78% of the time. So that's what I got for him.
He does have a nice staff surrounding him right now. But this is it's a good question. And the fact that it's difficult to answer, I think, says a lot. But it's true, man, because when Sam Pittman was hired, nobody expected him to be like an offensive genius or whatever. He was going to be always the CEO type of head coach. And the big thing was like surround yourself with the right type of staff. And then you have to be the motivator. Everybody's always going to run through a brick wall to play for Sam Pittman. And that was the case for a minute, and it's not so much now. So it's a valid question. It really is.
Yeah. And I think, Curtis, you're right. Like we've seen this happen a lot in college sports or even the pro levels, where the head coach is no longer expected to be like the chief X's and O's guy, which I don't think anyone believes Sam Pittman is. I don't think he bills himself as. And we've seen this formula work perfectly fine. I mean, we saw LSU win a national title doing it. And I would even say Nick Saban was pretty much a CEO type of head coach. Like, it wasn't like he was calling the offensive plays or even overruling his defensive coordinators, because he always had a good staff in front of him. I think it's just one of those things where this formula, it's not that it can't work, it's just that it hasn't. And you mentioned the motivation aspect, and I think that's been the biggest deficiency that is hardest to look past, because it's not like we none of us, like you said, none of us came in expecting Sam Pittman to be running the offense. But yeah, we expected him to be that motivator that gets the guys up to play each Saturday. And I would say that's probably the harshest critique you can give, is that, hey, the one thing we thought we were going to be able to count on with you, we have not been able to count on. So yeah, appreciate the question, man. I think that was a good one.
Also, like, he's one of the worst game managers in the SEC to me. Like, and that doesn't help. Like, you have to be able to do something really well if you're going to be the CEO of the team.
Yeah, you got to be able to do the small things. And I think that's, again, goes back to like what I was saying, the things that you thought that he would develop into and work on and become better at. Because I give him credit. When he came in, he hired Barry Odom and Kendall Briles. And, a lot of people thought that he was going to hire Jim Chaney or whatever because it was his buddy, and he didn't. And, I think the best thing for him was hiring a head coach like Barry Odom to help him with that. And every time he's had a coordinator that's been a previous head coach, even Dan Enos, even though that was a disaster, he previously had been a head coach to kind of help him with that. But 5 years in, you shouldn't be needing any head coaches on your staff to help you with that. You should be the head coach, and you should be the one that's actually doing it. So, yeah, it's been a problem. There's no doubt.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in.
I mean, it's so telling when you ask a question like that, and we really just, you got to think hard to come up with something. You can't really come up with anything. I mean,
yeah,
love Sam, but goodness.
And just to follow up on this, I see Clint here asked, so what would you guys say Pittman was hired on? CEO type coach hiring, Rolodex, and recruiting? Yes. I mean, he was hired upon the idea that he was the guy who wanted the job. And let's just be honest, they went through several options before they got to Sam Pittman. It wasn't like he was the guy brought in to be the savior, but I think they bought into the idea of, yeah, he's got a recruiting background, which I think speaks for itself. And frankly, it's hard to nitpick too much the recruiting job he's done for the most part at Arkansas. Like, I feel like it hadn't been like great, but it also hasn't been below par. Like, it's been about what you would expect from an Arkansas head coach. And I think the thing we could keep coming back to is they felt like players wanted to play for Sam Pittman. And when I say wanted to play for him, I don't just mean come to Arkansas and play. Like, we thought they would run through a brick wall for him and all that stuff. And you saw little inklings of that early on in his tenure, especially in 2020, 2021. But it does seem like that is less of a thing now. It's less of a narrative that we talk about because it just hasn't happened as much. So yeah, I would say that was, and let's just be honest. Let's just call it what it is. He was the cheap option. Let's just be 100% real. He was the cheap option, and that certainly played a role.
Well, and also not to keep bringing up when he was hired, but I mean, the fact that he was cheap kind of threw it up to like, all right, so because of that, you can now bring in a quality staff to surround him with.
Yeah.
To which I think they did at the time.
They did, yeah.
So,
I mean, Odom and Briles, that's about as good as you're going to get OCDC in the country, frankly.
Especially going and working for a coach that's never been a head coach before. Like, yeah. That's a big risk for them too. Got another phone call coming in. It looks like we got Ryan, who's in Little Rock. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, what's up, guys? Love what you do with the show.
Thanks, man.
Hey, I just wanted to know what you guys think about some of Sam Pittman's decision-making. Sometimes it seems like he's got two brain cells fighting for third place, and I just want to know what you guys think. What's one positive trait you would change to a negative to make a negative trait into a positive? Thanks, guys. Bye.
Good question there. I know the positive trait that I would change is his honesty, because he is way too honest, as weird as that is to say. And it's not saying that he shouldn't, because for one, he should always be honest with his team. He should always be honest with the players and everybody, but the honesty for his media and for the fans and for all that, sometimes it hinders him more than it helps him. But I trade that and then, of course, replace that with, like game management alone. You could do it for that. That's been a problem. So that'd be the ones I would change.
Yeah, it's so true with the game management stuff, and people continue to bring that up, as they should. Early in his tenure, some of that you get a little bit of a pass for because it's really your first time doing it. But when you're in 5 years into this thing and it's still the same pretty basic things that they can't seem to get right, I mean, And then you think about everything else in terms of, okay, well, if you're not doing that, then what are you doing kind of deal. I mean, I get it, but yeah, the honesty, off the top, I can't think of anything like a better example, John, than you just laid out. I mean, it's so true. Had he not said, I don't know, at one point after a game last year, I mean, that changed so much perception, and it lit the narrative on fire, man. Just more coach speak. People get irritated by it, but that would help them a lot. It really would.
Well, look, we make fun of coaches sometimes when they're like combative with media members who ask them questions of like, oh, you're questioning my decision. Like, you don't know what I would almost rather Pittman stand on his decision and be mad at people for asking him about it, because that's what normal coaches seem to do. He openly like tells you that he's been second guessing himself, that he doesn't know what to do in these situations. And so, yeah, it does kind of leave you open to stuff like that. And so it's like, if you think we're being too harsh, the guy says it himself that he's like, I didn't really know what to do in that situation. I was a little worried and I didn't want to make this decision because I knew people would read. He's openly admitted that he takes into account fan perception when he makes these decisions, which I think is just a slippery slope. And so I think, yeah, he's the honesty plays into that, where he's been overly honest about how he doesn't know what to do in these situations. And I think that's certainly an issue. And I think that's a big, big, big reason why there's a lot of people that don't have a ton of faith that they're going to rise to the occasion in games like this Auburn game or be able to turn things around. And look, it's not like he's incapable of making good decisions in these games, because I mean, he's had plenty that have worked out. But I think it's really tough to justify whenever you have your coach openly admitting a lot of times that he's second guessing himself and doesn't know what to do in all these big spots.
Yeah, Chase says we have the two best coordinators on campus since when. A new hire isn't going to change it with issue regarding money. Take a chance on an 8-win season or take a change on a potential Chad Morris. Well, I mean,
I would say, I mean, we said this is the best two coordinators on campus since when. I mean, they just had Kendall Browse and Barry Odom 3 years ago. We were just talking about them. And so, yeah, I think these are great coordinators, but I don't know if this is necessarily, that's a good enough reason to keep the head coach. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Especially because you can technically keep at least one of the coordinators with a different head. You know what I mean? Like, we see that happen here and there. And so I think that's a factor that is in this conversation, because I do agree. I love Arkansas's coordinators, and I think they should do whatever they can do to keep them. But I don't know if that should be the reason you don't fire a coach.
Yeah, I don't think that you should never do it when it comes to, I've heard about it. Well, don't want to fire a coach or whatever, because then, you can't keep the recruiting class. Like, no.
And I want to push back firmly on a new hire isn't going to change it with the issue regarding money. That's just blatantly incorrect. Like, we've seen a lot of coaches. I mean, literally just look at what happened in basketball. A year ago, Arkansas had an NIL problem, quote unquote, in basketball. They no longer have one. Right. I'm not saying it's that simple. You just hire a good coach. All the schools that we're talking about that have, quote unquote, good NIL have good coaches. That's what they have. And good coaches breed good NIL.
And there's also just a ton of examples that it wouldn't take long to come up with, of folks who are out there saying, yeah, I would love to contribute to this if there was a different head coach. Why would I contribute to this now under the current head coach? So, I mean, yeah, I'm with you, Andrew. I think it would absolutely make a factor. And I'm not standing here saying fire Pittman so the NIL gets better, but to the point, like, yeah, I do think it would make a tangible difference.
Agree. I do want to clarify. I'm not advocating for firing Pittman. I'm just saying, like, if the reasons for keeping him are, well, we're going to be poor no matter what, I don't agree with that. And if the other case is, well, the coordinators, we got to keep the coordinators, I don't think either of those are good enough reasons.
No. If you want to fire a coach, you fire a coach. Like, it doesn't matter about the lasting effects, because this isn't, in the 80s where if you fire a coach, then you got to take a 4-year deal to rebuild a team. It's not that way anymore. Like, it's completely different. So, yeah, never approach it that way. But I'll also say this too. Again, it's not saying that Sam Pittman's fired right now or anything like that. But with basketball, for instance, you went from Pelfrey, Mike Anderson, Eric Musselman, John Calipari. Each one of those coaches was better than the previous one. As much as you don't want to admit it, you have Chad Morris, and then you had Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman is a better coach than Chad Morris. We all 100% agree there. So if Sam Pittman moves on, who's to say that you don't upgrade? Again, not saying you go and get Nick Saban, but who's to say that you don't upgrade again, where you have that trajectory? You get somebody in that ends up being great, and then suddenly you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, I wish we would have kept those coordinators, I guess, if we had so-and-so, but I love this guy coming in. John Gruden's looking to get in college football. Maybe we can finally get those rumors going. Since
He's pushing it.
Yeah. friends with John Daly, and he spoke at the touchdown club. So, I mean, it's kind of like what happened with Petrino. So
Maybe Gruden will bring
Why
in
not?
Dilfer as OC.
Yep. Bring in Dilfer as OC, and then bring in Ed Orgeron as the hype
D-line
man.
coach, yeah.
Yeah, or, just the ambassador of the. He can go and speak at all the speaking engagements and just hear him talk. That'd be great. So, but yeah, that's probably what's going to end up happening. All right. Well, appreciate everybody watching and listening in. Got any final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here for today?
I am, for whatever reason, very excited for the simulation tonight. I've been looking forward to it all week. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a sicko, but that's going to be a lot of fun. We're doing the simulation, Arkansas versus Auburn. I think we're going to try to do the updated rosters and stuff. I'm the one guy who doesn't have a PlayStation or whatever, so I can't do it. So I'm kind of putting that on other guys, but I think we're going to do that. And I think the phone lines are going to be open, which would be a lot of fun. It's been entertaining.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's stream. I think it's going to be fun to find out what happens in this game. And yeah, like last week's stream almost went too well. So I'm thinking that this one's going to have a little bit more controversy.
Can't wait.
I may have to, I'm going to do updated rosters, and something I got to look into is also about Auburn's too, because I'm sure that they have Peyton Thorne as their starting QB. Well, it's not going to be him. It's going to be
That's right.
whatever the Hank.
Wait, before we get out, I have to read this comment. Just have to read this comment. Sorry, losers. Pittman stays. Shame on you, liberal media hacks. Doesn't change the NIL payout. Petrino is still a jerk. Hard to argue.
I swear, our chat. I swear. I don't know. Well, at least it was at the end of the show. At least you waited till the end.
He's still going.
Drop
Big
that.
D, go away.
Yeah, it's okay, Big D.
You're not welcome here.
Yeah, it's all right. My goodness. Never know what to expect out of the chat, especially at the end of the show. Either way, appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in to Inside Arkansas Live. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Inside Arkansas for all of our great content that we're going to be putting out each and every day. You can also be the best way to watch our EA Sports simulation tonight between Arkansas and Auburn. You can also check out our website, InsideArkansas.com, for all the greatest and latest, newest, up-to-date information on all things Razorbacks. And we'll keep it going from there. So for Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson, I am John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel. Tomorrow noon, we'll see you folks. Have a great night. We'll see you tonight for our video game simulation of Arkansas.